What happens when leadership takes a dangerous turn towards self-indulgence and grandiosity? Today, we delve into the astonishing saga of Tiffany Henyard, a mayor whose controversial reign has both captivated and infuriated the residents of Dolton, Illinois. As the first Black woman to be elected mayor of this small town, Tiffany's rise to power was hailed as a historic milestone, drawing the attention of journalists abroad, including the once-in-a-generation Titanic. Um, but what should have been a legacy of progress quickly spiraled into one of financial mismanagement, grandiose self-promotion, and a series of ethically questionable decisions that have left her town reeling. From lavish taxpayer-funded trips to first-class destinations to personalized billboards emblazoned with her image, Tiffany's tenure has raised eyebrows and serious concerns. Allegations of misusing public funds, leveraging police resources for personal gain, and employing manipulative tactics to consolidate her power have painted a troubling picture of her leadership. This is not just the story of one mayor's alleged misconduct, it's a cautionary tale about the fragility of accountability in small-town politics. Buckle up, because what follows is a deep dive into a political drama filled with shocking revelations and hard-hitting truths about what happens when power goes unchecked. Born in June 1983, Tiffany Henyard grew up in Dolton, Illinois, a modest village of about 200 residents, located just a half-hour south of Chicago. From a young age, Tiffany's ambition was evident. After graduating from high school, she pursued higher education, earning a bachelor's degree in business administration. Alongside her professional pursuits, she embraced her role as a mother, raising her daughter Justice, while steadily building a name for herself in local politics. Tiffany's political journey began when she served as a village trustee for 8 years. During this time, she positioned herself as a community advocate and a voice for progress. In 2021, her dedication paid off when she made history by becoming the first Black woman elected as mayor of Dolton. Securing a resounding 82% of the vote, Tiffany's victory was a landmark moment that promised a new era of reform and growth. For the village, Tiffany's didn't stop there. In March 2022, Tiffany took on a second role as the supervisor of Thornton Township, one of the largest townships in Illinois. This dual position provided her with a combined salary of $300,000 annually, a significant figure that underscored her rising influence. Tiffany's early tenure was filled with optimism, with many residents hoping she would bring much-needed change to Dolton. However, as time passed, her leadership became mired in controversy, tarnishing the promising legacy she once seemed poised to create. The first cracks in Tiffany Henyard's administration began to surface in December 2021. Just months after her historic election, the Dolton Board of Trustees voiced their dissatisfaction by voting for a recall election. I didn't realize you insisted that the country get into commercial microchipping, she said visually. Concerns over her leadership and decision-making prompted this drastic step. The recall election took place in June 2022, and Tiffany lost, a significant blow to her legitimacy as mayor. However, the courts later invalidated the results on procedural grounds, allowing her to remain in office. As Tiffany's time in office progressed, her tenure was plagued by allegations of unethical behavior and questionable decision-making. One of the earliest controversies involved Tiffany hiring a former campaign worker as a code enforcement officer, despite the individual's prior conviction for a grave offense against a minor. This decision not only raised ethical concerns, but also cast doubt on her judgment and priorities as a leader. In what appeared to be a preemptive move to discourage challengers in future elections, Tiffany proposed a bill that would cut the mayor's salary to $25,000 a year if she were to be defeated. If re-elected, however, her salary would remain unchanged. This move was widely criticized as a blatant attempt to maintain her grip on power by making the position less appealing to potential opponents. Tiffany faced backlash for spending public money on personal billboards that prominently featured her name and image. These billboards served no clear public purpose and were viewed as an extravagant and unnecessary use of taxpayer funds. Tiffany and her administration came under fire for spending over $67,000 of taxpayer money on trips to cities like Portland, Atlanta, Austin, and New York. These trips often included first-class airfare and high-expend hotels, with no transparent connection to village business. For instance, one trip to Las Vegas for a shopping center conference involved a $3,700 first-class round-trip ticket, leaving residents questioning the necessity of such expenses. Using the Dalton police force also attracted criticism. She assigned full-time officers to her personal security detail long after protests in 2021 had subsided. Additionally, these officers were reportedly used for personal errands and even participated in a music video she filmed, actions that cost the village thousands in overtime and reduced the availability of police resources for residents. Tiffany was accused of transferring public funds to a private foundation that bore her name, raising serious concerns about transparency and misuse of taxpayer money. This issue attracted the attention of the Illinois Attorney General and the FBI, both of which launched investigations into her financial dealings. So, as these controversies mounted, Tiffany's leadership became a source of frustration and division among Dalton residents, overshadowing the initial promise of her groundbreaking election. Tiffany Henyard's tenure as mayor of Dalton, Illinois, reveals a complex web of troubling personality traits and behavioral patterns that have drawn sharp criticism. Her actions suggest a leader heavily driven by grandiosity, manipulative tactics, and a profound lack of insight, all of which have contributed to her controversial reputation. A defining feature of Tiffany Henyard's leadership is her grandiose sense of self. She often referred to herself with lofty titles, such as the People's Supermayor, in both public speeches and on her personal website. This self-aggrandizing behavior reached a peak when she declared herself the embodiment of historical icons like Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, and Harriet Tubman, going as far as to state, "I am the dream," during public addresses. Such statements not only alienated her critics, but also painted a picture of a leader deeply disconnected from the realities of her responsibilities. Her focus seemed to center on building her personal brand and image rather than addressing the pressing concerns of her constituents. This grandiosity was further evident in her actions, such as the installation of billboards featuring her name and image, funded by taxpayer money, and her public celebration of surviving a recall election by dancing to "Ain't No Stoppin' Us Now" during a board meeting. Tiffany demonstrated a propensity for using manipulative tactics to maintain control and deflect criticism. One of her key strategies was leveraging racial solidarity to guilt the Board of Trustees and her opponents. During a heated meeting, she accused Black trustees of betraying a Black woman in power, stating, "You all should be ashamed of yourselves because you all are Black." This emotional appeal sought to frame legitimate criticisms of her leadership as betrayals of racial unity, a tactic that diverted attention from her alleged misconduct. Additionally, Tiffany was accused of stacking the Dalton Board of Trustees with hand-picked loyalists by falsely claiming endorsements from the Thornton Township Democratic Party. This move was seen as an effort to consolidate her power and ensure decisions were made in her favor, further eroding trust in her leadership. Perhaps most troubling was Tiffany's pattern of irresponsible behavior and her apparent lack of awareness regarding the consequences of her actions. Her penchant for extravagant spending, including first-class airfare and luxury accommodations, exemplified her disregard for the financial constraints of her community. Spending over $67,000 on trips with no clear benefit to Dalton residents highlighted her prioritization of personal comfort over public service. Tiffany's use of village resources for personal glorification, such as filming music videos with police officers and assigning them to her personal security detail, underscored her misuse of public funds and personnel. These actions not only drained resources meant for public safety, but also created an image of a leader detached from the practical needs of her constituents. Tiffany Henyard's behavior as mayor paints a picture of a leader who placed personal ambition and self-promotion above her responsibilities to the community. Her grandiosity, manipulation, and irresponsibility have not only tarnished her legacy but also undermined the trust of the residents she was elected to serve. These traits offer a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and the consequences of prioritizing self-interest over public duty. The controversies surrounding Tiffany Henyard's tenure as mayor have left a lasting impact on the village of Dalton, both financially and socially. Her questionable decisions and alleged misuse of public funds have contributed to a growing sense of frustration and disillusionment among residents. One of the most significant consequences of Tiffany's leadership is the financial strain on Dalton's resources. The village's general fund is now operating under a staggering $3.65 million deficit, largely attributed to extravagant spending and mismanagement. Luxurious trips, first-class airfare, and unauthorized expenditures on personal projects have drained taxpayer money that could have been allocated to essential services and infrastructure. This financial instability has left the community vulnerable to further economic challenges. Penny's alleged misuse of the Dalton police force has also had a direct impact on public safety. Assigning officers to her personal security detail and other non-essential tasks diverted valuable resources away from their primary duty of protecting residents. This misuse not only created gaps in local law enforcement, but also led to overtime costs that further strained the village's budget. Perhaps the most damaging consequence has been the erosion of trust in local government. Residents have expressed growing frustration with the lack of accountability and transparency in Tiffany's administration. Allegations of favoritism, manipulation, and misuse of public funds have tarnished the image of Dalton's leadership, leaving many citizens skeptical about the future of their village. In the wake of these controversies, Dalton's residents are left grappling with the fallout of a leadership crisis that has shaken the foundation of their community, highlighting the urgent need for reform and accountability. The saga of Tiffany Henyard serves as a glaring reminder of systemic vulnerabilities in small-town politics. It highlights how a lack of effective checks and balances can allow leaders to consolidate power, misuse public resources, and evade accountability, all at the expense of the community they are elected to serve. Also, hopefully you didn't think this was a meetup. In Dalton's case, the absence of robust oversight mechanisms enabled Tiffany to make unilateral decisions, such as hiring questionable individuals, transferring public funds to private ventures, and mismanaging village finances. Despite mounting concerns from the Board of Trustees and the public, procedural loopholes and insufficient scrutiny allowed these practices to continue unchecked. This reflects a broader issue. When governance structures lack transparency and accountability, they become susceptible to exploitation. Tiffany's ability to remain in power despite a recall election and numerous controversies also underscores the role of voters and officials in enabling such behavior. Whether due to apathy, misinformation, or fear of challenging authority, inaction on the part of those with the power to demand change perpetuates cycles of mismanagement. This highlights the critical need for civic engagement and active participation in local governance. Ultimately, this case demonstrates that accountability and transparency are non-negotiable pillars of effective governance. Clear financial reporting, independent audits, and open communication with constituents are essential safeguards against abuse of power. The residents of Dalton, like citizens in any community, deserve leaders who prioritize the public good over personal gain. Tiffany Henyard's story is a cautionary tale, urging both officials and citizens to demand integrity, vigilance, and reform to protect the future of their communities. Envoy. Tiffany Henyard's journey from an inspiring trailblazer to a deeply controversial figure paints a vivid picture of how unchecked power and questionable ethics can erode a community. Her historic rise as Dalton's first black female mayor came with promises of reform and progress. Yet her tenure has been overshadowed by allegations of financial mismanagement, personal glorification, and misuse of authority, leaving Dalton grappling with a $3.65 million deficit, strained resources, and shattered trust in its leadership. This story isn't just about one leader's failings. It's a reflection of systemic gaps that allow such leadership to thrive. It forces us to ask a critical question. What can communities like Dalton do to prevent such leadership failures in the future? The answer lies in strengthening oversight, fostering civic engagement, and ensuring that leaders are held accountable for their actions. We'd love to hear your thoughts. How can towns protect themselves from leaders who abuse their power? Share your ideas in the comments below. Together, we can work towards building stronger, more transparent governance. Says 3 p.m. From leaders who say they're committed to acting